Live. Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're watching me from, and welcome to the Financial Clinic. I am Adenike Shokumbi, and I'm so glad to be your host at the Financial Clinic today. Trust your day is going well. Trust you had an amazing day for those that are already home. It's Financial Clinic, and I'm so excited today. We're going to be covering a very interesting topic, and I'm particularly very excited about it. But before we go into that, for those who are watching us for the very first time, perhaps it's your first time of seeing our video, it's your first time of seeing this channel, and you are asking, what is this channel about? What is Financial Clinic about? Money, 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 and money conversations is what Financial Clinic is about. Yes, we explore the world of money, demystifying complex financial concepts into simple steps and practical strategies that you can actually execute, that you can actually action, that you can actually engage for your financial progress. And ultimately, what we want you to achieve is financial independence. So I welcome you to the Financial Clinic for those of you that are joining us for the very first time. And so today, like every other Thursday at the Financial Clinic, the topic that we have on our table is also a very interesting one. And you know that every conversation we have here is geared towards you being able to progress financially, you being able to make, good financial decisions. And so today we're going to be having another very interesting topic. And one of the reasons why I am particularly excited about this topic is because most of us, if not all of us, have actually found ourselves in this situation one time or the other. Most of us have had to navigate, and there are still some that are still navigating this financial struggle. And I'm so excited that we are going to be talking about that financial struggle today. So the topic we are considering today is finding your money in the waste. Finding your money in the waste. Okay, have you ever thought of maybe digging through your trash? Let's say you're digging through your trash and you find a crisp 500K bundle in your trash. I mean, your waste. You are digging through your waste bin, and then you find a 500K crisp, naira note in your trash. I'm sure in your imagination, it sounds like that's absurd, that's unreasonable, that's weird. What will a 500K bundle be doing in a trash? Something as valuable as that. Why would I put something as valuable as that in the trash, even without knowing? Of course, it can't be consciously. You agree with me? So why would I put a 500K bundle in a trash, whether intentionally or unintentionally? It's something that we find difficult to process. That that's actually absurd. No reasonable human being who want to just toss their 500K in the trash. But the truth is that is exactly what some of us are doing on a daily, metaphorically. We are daily making financial decisions like lavish buys, like impulsive purchases, and uncultured spending. And every time we make such decisions, every time we make such moves, what we are indirectly doing is tossing our financial future in the waste bin. Tossing our financial future with every lavish buy, with every ignorant, purchases, and with every uncultured spending that we do. And the truth is, each and every one of us at one point or the other, like I said initially, have found ourselves at that particular, place, have found ourselves in that situation. I just want to treat myself moment. I just want to treat myself moment, and then it turns into a full-blown financial meltdown. I just want to go to the shopping mall. I just want to go to the supermarket, and I'm just getting one thing. And then you go into the supermarket, and here you are coming out of the supermarket with a cart load of items that you didn't even plan, to buy. And so how many times have you found yourself in this situation? And like I said initially, that we've all found ourselves in this situation, right? And I have also had my own fair share of this struggle. I've had my own fair share of, having to navigate this struggle. And during the course of this conversation, I'm going to be touching on, of course, I'll be sharing my story. I'm going to be touching on what are the things that, I struggled with, and what are my victories, and what are the things that I did, what are the principles that I engaged that you too can actually exemplify in your own life, or whatever is it that is the current financial, struggle that you are going through. I understand that every, financial, even though I had my own bout of that financial struggle, it might not be exactly your own situation, because it's in varying degrees, right? So it might not be exactly the same with yours, but the truth is principles are pretty much the same. And so a little tweak here and there, and then you'll be able to apply it to suit the peculiarity or whatever is it that is your own financial situation. And so let me just, talk about this money in the waste thing. The first time that I actually heard that statement was how many years ago? Like 28 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, 28 or 27 years ago, that I heard that statement for the first time. The money is in the waste. That was the way it was said. And this actually happened at a time where my mom suffered like a business setback. The store where she used to keep items for close to 6 months to 1 year before she finally sends it, to the destination where it will be sold for her. It was during Hamatan, and there was one fire that started that became uncontrollable, and then in the process, the store where she had the items, was burnt down to ashes. And then for the very first time, my dad took this trip to one of my uncle's place, who was actually doing very well at the time. The conversation, of course, he went to my mom, because the kind of person that my dad is, I would not have even known about what happened whilst he was there. But because my mom was there, she came back and gave us the full gist of everything that happened. So at the point when my dad was trying to set the tone for the conversation around, how my mom's store got burnt, and the reason why he came to visit my uncle unannounced, and how that this situation, how bad the situation is, and all of that. So in the process of setting the tone for the conversation, my daddy said, that my wife, deals with waste. And then my uncle interrupted him immediately and said, the money is in the waste. In fact, when my mom came back and mentioned that to me, I actually resented that my uncle for a very, very long time, because of the context in which he actually said that he didn't want to render that assistance, and he was just simply telling my dad that, oh, people who are working with waste are actually working with money. That sometimes they can even, they can even get us, they can even get more money than people who were actually working corporately like him, at that time. And of course, I wasn't very happy. I wasn't very happy, but in retrospect, every time that I now had to, think about that statement, the money is in the waste. And considering, some of the knowledge that I've gathered over time as it has to do with money management, and I understand that truly money is in the waste. The money is in the waste. And so that is the reason why, we have the topic that we are talking about this evening. That's the reason why we have it as that topic. The money is in the waste. And so what is that, financial struggle that you are having to deal with? What is that financial struggle that you are having to deal with? I'm sure that depending on where we are in our lives, depending on the seasons that we're having to navigate, we are all having to deal with different, sorts of financial struggle. But for the discussion that we are having today, we're just going to limit, the conversation to having to deal with impulsive purchases, having to deal with impulsive, for purchases. And usually the reason why people don't take this habit serious. I mean, this impulsive spending serious, because they feel, oh, it's just one small item that I'm buying now. It's just, it's not much. It's not really affecting my finances. But if left unchecked, it can actually become a monster that ruins your finances. And so, in order to guide against that, and that is why, one of the things that we are about at the financial clinic is being able to, provide you with that information, just that exact information you need to be able to make progress in your finances. People earn money, and some people say hard earned money. So, after earning the money in a hard way, let me put it that way, after earning the money hardly, so how is it that you don't even know where the money is going? How is it that you don't know where the money is going? And so what we're going to be doing this evening is pulling back the curtain on those seemingly harmless, those seemingly harmless habits that are actually draining our finances. Those seemingly harmless habits that are draining your purse, that are draining your bank account, that are draining your wallet, or whatever is it that holds money for you. At year in, year out, you come and say, oh, okay, by 2026, I'm going to do better with my finances, and then you repeat the cycle again, because you have not become the kind of person that can actually deal with the situation that you are in. So I'm just going to share my own story and how that, and then from there, I begin to just share on some principles that I engaged that helped me, which can also be beneficial for you if you're having to navigate, that financial situation of not being able to account for where your money is going. I used to pride myself in being a great saver growing up. And I was that person that was always quick to spot people who are spending lavishly. As in, like, why is this person, spending so much money? Why is this, person buying that item? I was very quick. I was very, very, very quick to like label people as, oh, lavish, extravagant, oh, and all of those, labels that we give to people who we think that they are spending or overspending. And so, but I never really saw myself in that light. I never really saw myself in that like, oh, me, I know how to save. But maybe the question that you want to ask is, what was I saving for? Because I was this person that will save, save, and save. And then I will do alajesheku. That's a contribution where you have like maybe 10 people, 10 people come together, will contribute. You have someone that will pick the first one, second one, third, like that. And then I was that very good with savings. I was saving money in Kolo, and at the same time, I would still do Alajesheku. Well, at the end of the day, where was the money going? And so usually when I saw people wearing saving and they were, in the buying things and all of that, I'm always like, no, these people, they are so reckless with money. They are so, and all of that. And I didn't know that I had a log in my, I didn't know I had a log in my eyes, whereas I was concerned about the peg, about the speck rather, in other people's eye. I had a log in my eyes, maybe both eyes, and then I was concerned about the speck in another person's eye. And I particularly didn't even realize I had, a spending problem until I started to cut my husband. And I remember when he confronted me, with that, I felt like it was just being overly shielded. Like, no, me that I'm, I know how to save, I know how to this, I know how to that. How will you be telling me that I have a problem? I have a spending problem. I didn't want to accept that I had a spending problem until he began to, point out, one or two things to me. And then I realized that the same thing that I was labeling people, for, I was in the same exact situation as them. And maybe not in the same exact situation as them because of what I came to understand later. Usually, when people see people who are spending lavishly, they are quick to label them as overly spending. They are quick to label them as overly spending. They are quick to label them as overspending. Because the reason why I label people, what's the word now? Why I label them to be extravagant was because I was looking at what they were buying. I was looking at what they were buying. I was not looking at their earnings because I didn't know what they were earning. And these people that I was actually complaining about their spending, habit at the time were actually people who are earning way over than what I was earning. And so, just for a bit of context, let me give this example of, let's say I was actually earning 20,000 naira, and then I'm talking about people who were actually earning maybe 200,000 naira or 400,000 naira. So I'm earning 20K. They are earning 400K. And then they walk into a shopping mall. I also walk into a shopping mall. Then I pick an item that is going for 10,000 naira from a 20K salary. And they pick an item maybe of 50K or maybe 100K from a 400,000 naira salary. So if we actually to consider our earnings, I was spending more at the time, because what makes for excessive spending is not how much you are spending. What makes for excessive spending is not how much you are spending. It is where you are removing that money from. How much are you earning? And so, people see people who are maybe on social media, or even people they know, like, this person, anytime the person goes into a shopping mall, they spend close to 20 million naira, or maybe clothing and shoes alone. Like, oh, shoe, 1 million naira, maybe they can pick five. Oh, designer clothes and all of that. And then you come back home, you're doing all the calculation for them. What you're not taking into consideration is, where from how much did they remove that 20 million naira? What if that is 0.0000% of their actual earnings or actual money that they have in their custody? And you that you're earning 20K that has gone ahead to spend 10K, you're not seeing that you have a problem, because you just spent 50% of your money. That was the exact situation that I was in. That was the exact situation that I was in. I was just so fixated on how much people were spending that I didn't care to know about, okay, so how much are these people earning to be spending this amount of money? And so me that was earning 20K, and I was removing 10K from my 20K to go and buy something, like to buy maybe clothes, to buy shoes. I wasn't seeing myself as a spender, even though I was actually overspending. In relation to what I earn, I was actually overspending. So when it comes to spending, it's actually very relative. And a lot of people, make the mistake of comparing, their lives with their neighbors, that they are not even aware of what it is that is the earning, capacity of those their neighbors. And so you just see that, so maybe your neighbor went and bought something and all of that, and you just feel, oh, since we live in the same neighborhood, and my neighbor is in a 3 bedroom, I'm in a 3 bedroom, so, and my neighbor is buying this, I can also, so is buying that from what? Is buying that from what? It's very important for us, if we want to make progress from where we are financially to the next level that we can be financially. There is need for us to pay attention to our spendings. There is need for us to pay attention to our spending habits. And the question is, are you an intentional spender? Are you an intentional spender, or are you an impulsive spender? Are you an intentional spender, or are you an impulsive spender? So how much of your salary, how much of your earnings, how much of your wages are you saving? How much is going to, there's always the ideal that once you get your salary, there's what is supposed to go into, there's a percentage that is supposed to go into maybe your running expenses, there's what is supposed to go into savings, there's what is supposed to go into investment, because there are so many people that are earning money and it feels like, oh, something is draining the money. It feels like there is a leak in their purse. It feels like there is a leak in their bank account. It feels like there is a leak in whatever is it that holds money for them. Whereas is the seemingly harmless habits of lavish buys, of impulsive purchases, and spending addiction that is actually draining their finances. And so if you if you find yourself on this table, what will be the way forward? If you are someone who is given to impulsive spending, if you are someone who will buy things that you didn't plan for, if you are someone who will go and just, without budgeting, like, you're just buying as the money comes, what is it that you can do about it? Because at the financial clinic is not a judgment zone. It doesn't matter where you are on the impulsive spending spectrum. You can be helped. It doesn't matter if your story is similar to mine, that I was earning 20K and 50, percent of my money was going into, and I didn't say it just because the money is small, does not mean that I'm not dealing with that struggle. And so if that's your situation, if that's your story, it doesn't have to stay that way. It doesn't have to remain your story. And that is why the financial clinic will make it a point of duty to always have these conversations so that you will know where it is that the leakages are. What are the things that you are indulging in? What are the things that you are engaging? What are the things that you are doing that is not good for the financial independence that you seek? And so if you're giving to impulsive spending, what is it that you can do? Because it can be helped. It can be helped. You can be helped. I was helped, and you too can receive the help. You too can get the help. And so what is the start point for someone who is actually struggling with being able to manage the money that comes, into your hands, being able to manage that comes into your bank account? If you have that struggle, one of the things that you have to do, or the place of where it starts from, addressing the problem, where it starts from, is self-awareness. As with every other aspect of our lives that we want to improve, that we want to grow, it's always from the place of self-awareness. You have to be able to acknowledge that you have that problem. And like I said earlier, about I had a spending addiction problem, but I didn't know. I had problem with impulsive purchases, but I didn't know. Just because at every point in time, I was always considering the money. I was always considering how much was going on. Like, oh, I'm not spending hundreds of thousands of naira, but I didn't even have access to hundreds of thousands of naira. Because you can say, oh, when I earn more, or when I manage this one that I have and it multiplies and I have more, and then I will now be able to, spend more wisely. Even at 10K, if you're earning 5K and you're not able to be prudent and frugal with the 10K or 5K, even if you earn 1 million naira, it will still be the same story. It will still be the same story. And so I said, so to how do we overcome this challenge of impulsive buying? It starts from the place of self-awareness. I need to be aware. I need to come to terms with the fact that it's actually a struggle for me. You need to be able to come to that place where you acknowledge that it's actually a struggle for you. You need to be able to name what exactly is the struggle. Is it lavish buy? Is it ignorant buy? Is it impulsive spending? So, and the moment you're able to name it, because if you don't name it, you will not be able to tame it. If you don't name it, you will not be able to tame it. If you don't see it as a problem, then you won't be able to also move towards solution. And so after naming it, after acknowledging it, what is the next thing that you have to do? Measure it. Measure it. Because this impending spending is actually to varying degrees. Is actually to varying degree. We have the impulsive spending spectrum. That's, and on the impulsive spending spectrum, we have occasional impulsive buying. And I think that most of us fall into that category of the occasional impulsive buying, where maybe you walk into a supermarket occasionally, and then you actually went there to get a couple of items, and you find, and at the end of the day, you eventually maybe pick a candy, or you pick a chocolate, something very small, in addition to what you went there to buy. That one is occasional spending, occasional impulsive spending, occasional impulsive spending. When you go occasionally, and it's just a small item that you bought at the end of the day, and the financial implication is not grave, you almost not even feel that you actually did anything, because it's just a small item. And then we have the second one on the spectrum being frequent impulsive spending. Frequent impulsive spending. And this one too, it also involves, buying of small items that you didn't plan for. But this one happens more frequently. And in some cases, actually, it can actually, affect your finances, but not gravely. It can affect your finances, but not very grave. And then we also have the problematic impulsive spending. And so you see, it started from occasional, now we are at frequent. And one thing that we also need to take into consideration is that the occasional, if not checked, can actually grow into becoming frequent, because even though there are small items that you're doing occasionally, if you don't still check it and stay with your budget most of the time, you can actually migrate from that first level to the second level of frequent impulsive spending. And then you now progress from there to the problematic impulsive spending. And the problematic impulsive spending is such that it can adversely affect your finances. And then the last order on that spectrum is the compulsive buying disorder. You see how it can actually move from occasional to frequent to, excuse me, from 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 occasional to frequent, and then to problematic, and then to compulsive buying disorder. And I'm sure you don't want to get there. The compulsive buying disorder, where maybe you just shop out of maybe boredom, you shop when you're depressed, you shop where, as in, at every given, in fact, if you don't shop, you are not at ease anymore if you don't shop. So we can actually have that progression. And that is why it's important that whatever level that you are at, you have to make a quick move to be able to take steps that can help you to actually overcome, impulsive spending. So I talked about self-awareness as the starting point. And then after self-awareness, it's important to develop a frugality mindset. Most times when people hear, oh, okay, so I have this problem, and, like what we are talking about now, impulsive spending, I really want to overcome this impulsive spending. Okay, so what do I need to do? People are always asking about what to do. But if you ask the wrong questions, eventually your solution or the answers that you seek might not be so far-fetched, because you're not asking the right question, you're not getting the right solution, you're not getting the right answers. And so, as to, oh, what do I need to do? Yes, this is the situation that I'm in currently. What do I need to do? As against what you need to do, the question should be, who do I need to become? Because even if you tell you this is what you need to do to be able to overcome this, have you become the person that can actually do that thing we are asking you to do? Have you become the person that can actually, do what we are asking you to do? So most of the time, it's not about what is the next thing to do, as much as it is about the mindset. And what is the mindset that we are talking about? Where your mind is set at. Where your mind is set at. Where your mind is set at. Is your mind set at frugal? Is your mindset at frugal spending? Or is your mind set at lavish spending? Because no matter what we say, if you still have your mindset at if you still have your mindset at lavish, you still have your mindset, you know, at waste, if you still have your mindset at wasting money and all of that, at the end of the day, no matter what we say, no matter what we tell you to do, you still find your way back to impulsive purchases, to the spending addiction. And so you have to work on your mindset. Because the truth of the matter is, people who are frugal actually are not trying to be frugal. People who are frugal are not trying to be frugal any more than people who are wasteful are trying to be wasteful. I don't know if you get that. People who are frugal are not trying to be frugal any more than people who are wasteful are trying to be wasteful. In both cases, it's automatic. If your mind is set at frugal, you make decisions around finances that are frugal. But if your mind is set at lavish, you also make decisions that are lavish. And so, are you ready to embark on the journey of setting your mind where you want it? What is the outcome that you desire? If you desire that you want to be able to make financial decisions that are prudent, you want to be able to make financial decisions that are good for the financial progress and ultimately the financial independence that you seek. So are you willing to work on your mindset? Are you willing to work on your mindset? Because no matter what we say, the subconscious, no matter what you know, the subconscious will always and always and always trump the conscious. So it doesn't matter how many seminars you attend, as long as you're not ready to work on the subconscious, as long as you're not ready to work on your mindset, which is in the subconscious, eventually you still continue to make the same mistakes, and which I believe that you do not want to make. People who are frugal are not trying to be frugal. Yes, in the same way that people who are lavish are not trying to be lavish, because there's nobody you actually meet that will tell you, I'm trying to be wasteful. But once you have a programming that supports waste, you can't but waste. And once you have a programming that supports that you are prudent with your finances, you can't but be prudent with your finances. And so, which one do you want to go with? I'm sure that you want to go with a frugal mindset. So, are you ready to commit to the process, that delivers it? And so, for someone who wants to start that journey, what are the things that you can actually do that can actually set you up for the success, the financial success that you desire? So, you might want to start working with a budget. You might want to start working with a budget for somebody who is trying to, come out of those impulsive buying, impulsive, purchases and spending addiction. You may want to, not may, you will want to, actually, you will want to commit to budgeting. And it's not just to budget, like you take a piece of paper or maybe all those budgeting apps that people use. Can you still hear me? Can you still hear me? There's a power interruption. So I want to know if you can still hear me so that I continue. So that I continue. Or maybe let me just pause and wait for the light to be back on before I continue. We're rounding up shortly, Sha. Okay, so maybe for the sake of our time, maybe I should just continue. Maybe I should just continue. So there's need for you to understand what your spending habits are. There's need for, I said you have to create a budget, work with the budget, right? Then understand your spending habits. Understand your spending habits. And how you can better understand that is by tracking your expenses. You want to make sure that you're using spreadsheets, notebooks, or budgeting apps, whichever one you're comfortable with. And then you also have to be able to also review your bank accounts. You also have to be able to review your bank and credit card statements. Okay, so sorry about that. So you have to be able to review your credit account and bank statement. You also want to identify what is it that triggers the impulsive spending. You want to understand what your triggers are so that you don't walk into your temptations. There are some of you that will have to go and unsubscribe from some marketing emails that are always bringing those things that, that will make you fall back into exactly what you're trying to come out from. So you have to identify the situations that triggers you. Like I said, okay, I think we're back on. Let's manage what we have now. Let's manage what we have here. Sorry for the interruption. We are in Nigeria. We're in Nigeria. All right, so I'll just continue. So you have to be mindful and mindful of, just if you know that you have that temptation, you also need to also manage the window shopping. Because I remember one of the things I used to do back then is, oh, so I just want to go and window shop. I'm not really buying anything. And then I walked right straight into my temptation. And before you know it, even though I went for window shopping, I'm already out of the shopping mall with 10 items I didn't plan to buy. So you want to ensure that you have a budget that you're working with. Don't just, don't just write your budget. Don't just have a budget. Make sure that you are using the budget. Stay away from your temptations. At least I'm at that point in my life now where I can walk into a shopping mall and I'm actually there for window shopping. Yes, I can go through online sites, shopping site, and I'm just there for window shopping. But there was a time in my life I couldn't do that when I was trying to navigate that challenge. So you might also be at a point where you don't want to you don't want to set up your you don't want to set yourself up for failure. Yeah, you don't want to set yourself up for failure as it has to do with what you're trying to overcome in your finances. So you want to make sure that if there is any subscription that you have that you are not using, is a time for you to also review the subscription, all of those things that you are subscribed to, 5,000 here, 7K here, 10K here, to see which one is actually, a need, which one is actually something that you cannot do without. That's what I classify as a need. And then anyone that is not in that category of something that you really need, you may have to unsubscribe from it. You may have to unsubscribe from it. And what you also want to do while you're trying to also navigate, this financial challenge, is to also have like a support group. You want to ensure that you're keeping the right company, because there's no way you're trying to overcome waste. There's no way you're trying to deal with impulsive spending, impulsive purchases, and then you have friends who are, impulsive spenders too. And then you're always, around them when, they are going from one shopping mall to the other. Eventually, you are setting yourself, up to fail. If you still have, you're still surrounding yourself with such people. I'm not saying to dissociate, from them, but I'm just saying you might want to build a new community. Maybe people who have been able to navigate this financial struggle, and they are at that place where you can stay accountable to them, because you want to be accountable in this season. Someone who is able to, like, oh, okay, so how far last month were you able to, keep up with what you said you will do? And so you want to surround yourself, support yourself, as it were, with the right people. It's also important to also take advantage of, the financial clinic as well. Like, we're having this conversation, I'm sure that even for people who are at some level, maybe you have moved from problematic impulsive spending to frequent, spender, hearing this conversation often can also kind of help you, to stay true to whatever is it that you are committed to, as it has to deal with dealing with this financial problem, which is impulsive spending, right? So you want to do that. And there's quite a number of things I would still have loved to talk about, but because we do not have time on our side, I've actually spent more than 30 minutes, right? 8 minutes over, and I don't want to keep us here for too long. And so I'll just say that as much as a lot has been said about impulsive spending, and what it is that you can do to be able to move from that person who is buying impulsively to that person who is intentional about what they purchase, about what they spend, and about what they buy. Everything will be all talk if it does not move from just hearing to execution. Everything that I've said now is going to be a waste if you don't execute. It is going to be a waste if you don't execute. You can start from self-awareness, right? Like after this class, you can go back to, okay, so you want to itemize what are those things that are your struggles, that it has to do with this impulsive excuse me, as it has to do with this impulsive spending. Like, okay, so you can start from the place of self-awareness and then progress into, cultivating the frugality mindset. And then, of course, we have talked about some of the things that you can do, like, budgeting, identifying what your triggers are, supporting yourself with the right kind of people, being in the right community, people who support, the goal that you have set to achieve, as it has to do with your finances and all of that. And so I'm going to draw the curtain here. And so it's a bye-bye now at the financial clinic. And Hope you are able to pick one or two things from what has been shared today. And so until next week, I want to say, do have an amazing evening. Bye bye.